Did you do any of chapter 21's homework yet?
No.
Okay. Maybe we'll take a look at this one, problem 21-28A, and you can work along with me. Maybe you can help me solve it. Okay. It says sibling furniture company manufactures and sells oak tables and chairs. Price and cost data for the furniture follow. Okay. So they got a little table here, and they're telling me that they sell the tables for $1,400 and they sell the chairs for $50. Then they have variable manufacturing costs of $938 for tables and $14 for chairs, and then they have a sales commission 8%. So on a per unit basis, 8% of 1,400, and we'll recalculate it for them just so you can see where they're getting that number. If I take 1,400 times 8%, 8%, that's the 112. Okay, and then we could do it for chairs. So 8% times $50 per chair equals 4. Okay, so the sales commission is also a variable cost because the more units you sell, the more sales commission you're going to pay. But it's not a variable manufacturing cost because it's not part of the cost to make it, but it still is a variable cost. Okay, so let's see what they want us to do. It says we got 3 sales representatives, so they have a table here, and they got the sales representatives down the left, so Al, Brandon, and Camera, and they say what each of them sold. So it says Al sold 50 tables and 4 chairs. Brandon sold 60 tables and 8 chairs. Camera, or is it Camara, sold 70 tables and 6 chairs. Okay, so what it's saying is calculate the total contribution margin and contribution margin ratio for each sales representative, round to 2 decimal places. Okay, before calculating the total contribution margin, begin by identifying and calculating the total numbers of tables and chairs sold by each sales representative for the period. So this table, it sounds like we're just doing the units. We're not adding dollars to it yet. We're not factoring in dollars. So I'm going to start with Al. Al sold 50 tables. Okay, so I'll put 50 in for Al. And for each table he sold 4 chairs, so that says with 4 chairs each, so 4 times 50 would be 200, but they want chairs per table, so 4, and then if you multiply you have 200. That's what it sounds like it's asking for. You see how the table is set up? Right? Let's see, Brandon sold 60 tables and he's doing 8 chairs per table, right? So that's gonna be what? 480?
That's 60 times 8?
That's 60 times 8?
Yeah, that'd be 480.
Be 480, right? Okay. Oops. There, we'll just keep our calculator handy. If we forgot our multiplication table, we can use a calculator. Kamara sold 70 tables with 6 chairs each, so that would be 420, right? Okay. Okay, so we got the units. Put our calculator over here. Okay. Now it says calculate the total contribution margin for each sales representative. Okay. So we're going to do the revenue, and then we're going to figure out variable costs. Then the difference between revenue and variable costs will be the contribution margin. Okay. So they want total contribution margin. I'm thinking that we got to multiply. So sales revenue for Al would be the total number of tables sold times 1,400 plus the total number of chairs sold times $50. Okay, so we'll do L first. I'm gonna go 50 tables times 1,400. That's 70,000, and you could put it in memory. And then we'll go, and this is where it's gonna play tricks on you, because let's see, chairs sold, right? We sold 200 chairs for $50, right? So you would go 200 times 50. That's gonna be 10. Oh, wait, clear that. There you go. 10,000, and then we would add that back to what we have in memory. You got 80,000. So Al's revenue is 80,000. Okay. Clear out your memory. So that's the process you would go through. You probably could do it in your head really quickly, but I'll go through the whole process with you. So we're going to do Brandon. He's got 60 tables times 1,400. That's 84,000. And then he's got 480 chairs times $50 per chair. Okay, and then you add that to what you have in memory, and that's 108 in revenue. All right. Okay, then we start all over with a clean slate. We got Kamara. She sold 70 tables times 1,400, and total chairs were 420 chairs times $50 per chair. Okay. So 119,000. So we got the revenue for everyone. Then you would kind of do the same thing with the variable costs, but you got to be careful, because I believe we need to put these sales commissions in there too. So in this case, you know, it might even be easier to have a little spreadsheet going. Then you can could say manufacturing cost, and you got sales commission. Okay, and then you might break it down by tables, chairs, and total, right? And we know that the variable manufacturing costs on the tables is 938, so you might put a 938 over here, and on chairs it's 14. You can see 14 there. Okay. And then you know your sales commission is always going to be 8% of revenue. So that's 8%. Oops, 8% of revenue. Okay, so you probably would do this for each person. So you might have one for Brandon, Al, Brandon, and Kamara. And then you probably want to have their revenue in there too, right? So you can work off of that. So they got, let's see, Al's, you know, and we don't have it broken down, right? Which we should have. So we might go back and do that anyway. So we got, so it's becoming a little more involved than we initially thought we could get away with. Let's see. Okay, so make this guy Al. Al's revenue is for tables is the 50 tables times 1,400, and for chairs it's the 200 chairs times $50. Okay. So So his manufacturing costs are gonna be it's gonna be the 50 tables times 938 for tables, and it's gonna be the 200 chairs times 14 dollars per chair on variable manufacturing costs. Okay, and then if you watch closely, I'm going to take 8% times the revenue, and that'll be my commission. Okay, and you wouldn't need to break that down by tables and chairs. Okay. But since we have it there, we can do that. So you can add those up. And add them across. Okay. And you might double check it. Oops, what did we do wrong? There you go. So it matches, okay? So that's really your total variable costs. And then your total revenue would be out here. If you add your total revenue up. So the difference between the total revenue and the total variable costs will be the contribution margin. Oops, come back there. So that's going to be my contribution margin. And you could do it broken down by tables, chairs. It looks like they just want the total, okay? And we'll call this guy Al. I'll do it a little slower for the next two. Okay, so we kind of did a little bit of a back step, and we approached it in a more comprehensive way. They're making you do it in steps inside of this problem here, but I think if you can see the whole thing in a spreadsheet like this, then you can see what's going on, right? So I just put this over here. That's just one of the factors that I use to figure out my variable manufacturing cost. Okay, that's on a per unit basis. So this is not really one of the things you're going to list over here. So let's see. Al's, let's put this up side by side like that. Okay. Then we can get this guy out of the way. Okay. So sales revenue is 80,000 for Al. Variable cost is 56,100. And the difference between 80,000 and 56,100 is 23,900. Okay. And we'll go through the other two. So let me do Brandon here. Okay. So line him up, slide these guys down. Okay. We got Brandon's revenue. Okay, so we already have the units, right? So if we want to figure out Brandon's revenue for tables, right, we would take the number of tables Brandon sold, 60, times the revenue per table. So we got a little thing here. And the revenue per table is 1,400. So we could go equals 60 tables sold times 1,400, which we kind of did already, right? And then we'll do chairs. So chairs were 480 chairs sold times $50. Okay. And in total, he's got 108,000. So that's really this number we're going after here. But the problem is we've got to break these down to get the variable cost and such. Okay. So variable manufacturing cost would be the number of tables he sold. So he sold 60 tables times the $930, which is also listed in this table, per table in variable cost. And for chairs, it would be 480 chairs times the $14 per table. Okay. And you can add those across. You don't need this. We don't need that there, okay. And then sales commission will be 8% of revenue. So I'm just taking the revenue figure and multiplying by 8%. Okay. And we could either add across or multiply by 8%. So if I added my two variable costs, that would be my total variable cost. This plus this. Yeah. Then you just want to make sure that that's what it adds up to in total. So these two, 63 plus 8640, that's 71,640. It shows up down here when I highlight it. Okay, so that checks out. So the difference between the revenue and the total variable cost will be the contribution margin. Okay, so we'll take that difference, this guy, minus this one. And we could have pulled it out over here like they have it. Right? We had it all the way out over here. Okay? So you got Al. Now you got Brandon. Same thing, my math doesn't line up the same way, but it's the same concept. Total revenue minus total variable costs gives you contribution margin. So I'll take 108 minus 71,640 gives me 36,360. Okay, and then finally we will do this guy. This is Kamara. Okay, Kamara's revenue for tables will be 70 tables times 1,400. Okay. Her revenue for chairs will be the 420 chairs she sold times $50 per chair revenue. Okay. So again, we add them up, and it should check out with what we already figured out, 119,000. Okay, then we go through the drill of figuring out the variable costs. So manufacturing costs will be her 70 tables times $938 per table. Okay. For chairs, it'll be her 420 chairs times $14 per chair. Okay. Add them across to get the total, 71,540. Then don't forget the commission. It's 8% of revenue. So I'm taking 8% and multiplying it by what's in C22, which is the revenue figure. Okay, and then we can just, that formula copies relatively across, okay? Oops, I double added that. So I got total variable costs. Add your manufacturing and your commission. That gives you your total variable cost.
Yeah.
Right? And then I would always double check that it adds both ways. So looks like it does. If I take my total variable cost and subtract it from my $119,000 in total revenue, that will give me my contribution margin. So let's see what we get. 119 minus 8160. Okay. So it's just a matter of plugging that in. And if you were really finicky about being absolutely right, you might want to go back and do the math here. But we're going to take a chance. And we got a good job on that. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I kind of jumped. This is like scratch notes here in Excel. So it from Al to Brandon to Camara. I mean, we could clean it up and make it all look like it's in the same format. But hopefully, you know, me jumping around and doing it in different formats, it'll help you focus on the calculations and not on what this thing looks like, right? If you're thinking it through with me doing it, then you'll know that I'm calculating it the same way. So I'll put a box around it. So okay, so always revenue minus total variable cost, and then you have to be careful in a problem like this because total variable cost is not only the manufacturing costs, but sales commission, because sales commission is a variable cost. As you have more sales, you have more sales commission. That's how you determine that it's a variable cost. If it was a fixed cost, then it would just be flat. You could have more sales and your sales commission in total would never go up. You would just have a flat amount. So it qualifies as a variable cost. Now they want me to compute the contribution margin ratio, and the formula for that is take your contribution margin and you divide it by your sales revenue. Okay. Now we could do that real easy. Why don't we plug in the factors in? I got it in the table over here, right? If you think about it, I got my contribution margin for Al sitting here in yellow, and I got Al's total revenue sitting there at 80. Okay. I got my contribution margin for Brandon sitting there at 36,360, and total revenue for Brandon at 108,000. Then for Camara, we got contribution of 37,940 and total revenue of 119. Okay, so we got all our factors, everything we need to do. In fact, we could even calculate it by taking, right, just using Excel to divide it. Okay, and it's going to come back in decimal format, but you have to move the decimal 2 places to the right to turn it into a percentage. Okay? But that's good like that, right? So we got that. All we really have to do now is populate our answer fields here. So I'll take Al's revenue, Al's contribution margin of 23,900. I'm going to divide it by sales revenue of 80,000, and it says round to 2 decimal places, the nearest 100th of a percent. Okay, so I'm going to go 29.88%. Right? Because if we change these to percentages, might as well do that already too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll leave another digit. So I got 3 decimal places, so I'll just round that to 29.88. For Brandon, we got contribution margin of 36,360 divided by 108,000 and sales revenue. That becomes 33.6%. Okay. And then for Kamara, we got contribution margin of 37,940 divided by 119,000 in sales revenue. That, and I already computed it over here, is 31.88%. And let's just let's kind of cross our fingers on this. Sometimes my accounting lab program doesn't necessarily round exactly the way we do. Oh, we got it back pretty quick. Well done. Okay. So you can see that, right? So what this tells you is, in a real summarized way, every sales dollar that Al has, he's getting roughly 29.88 cents after the variable cost. So you can maybe rank your sales reps. Which sales rep has the highest contribution margin ratio? And we'll see. Looks like it is Brandon, right? Brandon. And why? And they want to know why. And maybe we can look back up here. Let's see. Brandon. He sold a lot of tables. He didn't sell the most tables, but the number of chairs that go with his tables is the highest, right? So he ends up selling more chairs than anybody, right? And he's kind of in the middle for tables. So I might explain it that way, saying that he's able to generate a higher contribution margin because, and you could even break it down, you could figure out what the contribution margin ratio is for both tables and chairs. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. I'll do a little side thing over here, right? So sales price, it's $1,400 for tables, and chairs go for 50, right? Double check. Yeah, we sell them for 50. Okay. And variable costs, right? You're going to have your manufacturing, which is $938 for tables and $14 for chairs, and then you got the commission. So on a per unit basis, the commission would be 8% of the sales price. Okay, so I'll just take 8% of 1,400, and I got 8% of 50. Okay, so your total variable costs per unit, okay, would be 938 plus 912. And $18, right? Okay, so you could get your contribution margin per unit by taking the difference, 1,400 minus 1050, and 50 minus 18. And that's going to be the same for everybody. Now let's get our contribution margin ratio. So I'll take my contribution margin per unit and divide by my price, and I'll do it for both tables and chairs. Now this is the telling point, right? Chairs have a higher contribution margin ratio than tables do, right? So you're, on a percentage basis, you're making more for the chairs that you sell than you are for the tables that you sell. On a percentage basis, right? Of course, tables sell for a bigger dollar value. Okay, so I'm thinking that our answer is going to be somewhere along the lines of relating to how Brandon sold the most chairs. So let's see what they let us have. Had the highest level of variable costs, had the highest sales revenue for the period, no. Had the lowest level of fixed costs, that's irrelevant in this analysis. Sold the most chairs which have a higher contribution margin as compared to tables. I like that one, but I'm going to look at the last one. Sold the most tables which have the higher, that's erroneous, right? So we're able to eliminate 4 of the 5. And we'll go with sold the most chairs, and that answer here aligns with what we analyzed over here. We got a 64% contribution margin on chairs, and he sold the most chairs. Let's see how we do. Well done. Is that it?
Yeah.